Hello, this is Phillip Taylor from Richmond Green Chambers. I'm talking about a book from Kogan Page. It's one of the business series that they have, and they run a number of publications in what they call a Handbook series. And this is the Handbook of International Trade and Finance. It's by Anders Grath, and it's a very heavy book in some ways, but I think he gives a lot of light to an area of international trade and finance which people may not have thought much about. I've given it quite a long title on the internet, but the shortened version is Get Savvy with World Finance Regimes. Now, the book was written prior to the current economic difficulties which the world markets have faced since the end of 2008. The handbook itself has a subtitle. You can see the actual picture of the book there. It's a relatively thin book. It's the Handbook of International Trade and Finance, the complete guide to risk management, international payments and currency management, bonds and guarantees, credit insurance and trade finance. So as I said at the beginning, it's a heavy book, but let's get into it. Because in the review that I have produced of this work, I've said the subject of finance often strikes fear at the hearts of vulnerable people such as traders, because they're wary and afraid of the power it wields. Now, Grath, I think, has been able to dispel such fears with this work, and it's down to Kogan Page's decision to commission it, I think, which is excellent, because what he does with this work is he gives an excellent addition to the International Trade and Finance bookshelf that we have. I actually studied this when I did my bar finals, which is 20 years ago, and I found the subject difficult at that time, and it hasn't really changed that much. 20 years on from the original handbook being first published, we've now got this edition. And the key to understanding how this global industry now works is with the opening words, where Anders Grath says the following. He says, "An international trade transaction, no matter how straightforward it may seem at the start, is not completed until delivery takes place." That, of course, is very much the key to the legal issues that I would be looking at. And he then examines in the book the occasions when things might go wrong. There are 8 chapters covering these main areas: trade, risks and risk assessment, methods of payment, bonds, guarantees and standby letters of credit, current risk management, export credit insurance, trade finance, structured trade finance and terms of payment, the last one being, of course, pretty important at the present time. And it's, as I say, a handbook I would very much like to have had before I completed my module on international trade for the bar finals, because I think it gives a valuable piece of information for businesses describing the negotiating process from the perspectives of both the buyer and the seller, actually who become my clients when there's a dispute, of course. He also succeeds in giving a valuable insight into the complete financing process for the busy professional, taken from his experience of major European financial institutions. And there's a useful glossary at the back of the book and a small index, although there are no web links given, which is, I think, a little bit of a problem, because you do need to have that, although, of course, as you know, web links do tend to be need to be refreshed. But it does give practical reference guidance for everyday use, and I found his tables, diagrams and the practical working examples of great help in understanding the key finance areas of international trade in the 21st century. It's the direction which the global finance markets now appear to be taking, which is, of course, interesting both politically and legally, and we have to see how that settles down. I think this book itself is actually primarily of significant benefit to all international traders as they expand their business opportunities and enter new global markets. I think the difficulty, of course, at the moment is we've got a really difficult period in front of us, but it's also a work, of course, that educates all those who are new to the industry. And like a lot of the Kogan Page publications, it has the facility of easy use for the expert professional and, of course, the newcomer to banks and other trade-related institutions in all parts of the world. I hope it will be enthusiastically welcomed, this new edition, as the global markets themselves and the transactions which dominate the centre of the stage of our new trading outlets, and the problems of payment which are continuing to unravel to a new generation of financiers, are being looked at, because clearly we are entering a totally new age with finance. There are a lot of attendant difficulties, but I welcome the book, so thank you very much, Anders Grath, for producing it. Thank you. Bye-bye.